Okay. Welcome, everybody. Good night. I'm going to be your host for a two-part podcast, more like an interview. I have some guests with Bill Hoffman from Atumwa's video game capital of the world. Say hello to everybody, Bill.
Hello, everybody. I hope you're having a good night.
How's your night, actually?
Very good. You know, every night's good when you're sitting in the video game capital of the world, though.
I know I saw your live. Was that live that you did that video where you showed the venue where the arcade is going to be?
Yep, that was live, and I was just trying to give people a little taste of what the venue looked like and give them an idea of how we're going to have it set up. And we're going to have, the vendors there. The arcade's a big space. It's going to be great. We're having some great tournaments and the International Video Game Hall of Fame inductions. And yeah, I trying to give people a quick layout, and we're going to be updating people every few days as we bring more games in and bring more things in. So it's exciting.
Okay. How'd you know I was watching?
It pops up when we were doing it live. It pops up who's watching, and I got kind of excited when you were there because actually we were doing that video to show you when we talked earlier, and we wanted to show a couple other people, and we hope showing that gets people excited. We have not only the arcade space, we're going to take up the whole middle of the mall, and we're going to have a actual separate spot for the museum. People can come in and see the history that belongs to Atumwa. It actually belongs to Atumwa and always has. They'll be able to come in and see those pieces. And the most exciting thing of all is they're people who come from local and people who come from all over. They're going to get to meet people like you and Billy and kind of mix with video game royalty there. So that's exciting too. So.
All right. Well, I can't wait. It's only it's literally 30 days from now, November 9th, right?
Yes, 30 days, and we're working day and night to get everything ready to go, and we're gonna, it's all about a celebration of history. It's all about, celebrating the gaming community and where it started. And just to throw this in there, it's also about celebrating. We're helping support Wounded Warrior with this event, so looking forward to that too.
Okay, that's good. All right, so tonight we're definitely gonna be. I've actually titled this particular episode. I titled it "The Invisible War." This is something that's been going on in the classic gaming community for decades, literally. That's not even an exaggeration. As far back as the late 90s, coming all the way up till now. So we're talking about 20 years. And I definitely wanted to have you on the show because, and I want to address so many different things. Later on, when I have Billy Mitchell right after you, we could go in depth to an example of these type of invisible wars. But I really wanted to talk to you specifically because I wanted to talk to you in the overall element of it. This is dealing with Atumwa's history in competitive gaming and the whole foundation of esports as a whole. We're getting in that time where there's a lot of back chat and a lot of things a lot of people have to say as people are trying to, there are forces literally marshaled at trying to rewrite history the way they see fit rather than accept the history that we've all literally grew up in. And that's the sad part about it. We all grew up in it, but you have people who deny their own history, the newer generation who don't recognize their own history, and then just, other people who see a way of how they can benefit by trying to monopolize the history by simply omitting certain things and then inserting certain things to fit their narrative for whatever their brand is. And I really want to go over those things with you. So the first thing, let us discuss the video game capital of the world. There's a constant argument about, esports did not start in Ottumwa, Iowa. Esports existed long before that and all of this other stuff. And I just want to, I'm going to say something to you, and then I want your opinion on it, and then you could follow up on it with your thoughts on it. Competitive gaming has always existed. Competitive gaming has existed since the dawn of video games. The first video game that came out with, the fact that you're playing against a computer, it is competitive. So competitive games have been there since it depends on whether you want to argue about the World War II machine or if you want to argue over the amusement CTR or CRT, whatever you call it, right? It's up to you. So whether it's 1947 or 1951, depends on which one you want to pick, competitive gaming has started. Since that time, there have been video game tournaments that have gone through the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s, all the way up to the early 80s. So from video games to pinball, there's all been a whole bunch of competitions. And this is the age of competitive gaming. But it wasn't until Twin Galaxies, which is certified by Guinness as the first adjudicating video game company. So when you look at it, it's like the first company to create an adjudication system solely for literally creating an infrastructure to turn competitive gaming into a sport. Before Twin Galaxies, there was no organization for that. You had gaming companies who hosted video game tournaments to promote their particular game, arcades that promoted video game tournaments, pinball arcades that promoted their tournaments to promote their particular arcade. But it really wasn't for the actual sport per se until Twin Galaxies came around, which last year Guinness awarded Twin Galaxies that record, making them the first esports organization. Actually, they're the oldest because Twin Galaxies still exists to this day. And Walter Day is the father who built that infrastructure that turned competitive gaming into esports. So we're not saying Walter Day created competitive gaming, because he did not. But he did create the infrastructure that turned it into esports, much like basketball. Basketball was created in the 1890s, but it wasn't turned into a sport until the ABA and the NBA in the 1940s. See how that works? But I'm sure there were a lot of basketball tournaments before the ABA or the NBA came around. But it wasn't until the ABA and the NBA did it turn into a sport. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, Trey Force, I have quite a few thoughts. First, I want to start off by saying is these people who are trying to rewrite history or say this happened or this didn't happen, I want people to know that I'm coming from a perspective. I was there. I seen it. Now, you're right. There were video game tournaments, maybe before Walter, maybe before for a certain game or a certain company. But the birth of something starts somewhere. And in my opinion, you take baseball, football, any sport, you can put guys on a field and you can have them run and play by rules and score. But the trick is how do you get people to care about that? How do you get people to want to compete? How do you give people that competitive spirit? And that's what Walter Day did. Walter's magic is that he made people care about video games. He made people care who had high scores. He made people care and want to be competitive. Even though there was tournaments before him, it took him to come along and organize that. He was, and to this day, is a great organizer. He's the first one that brought, there may be in tournaments other places, but he's the first one that brought the best together. He's the first one that kept the scores. And he grew it so big. Twin Galaxies was the first and still remains the biggest. So that is proof right there that in the early days, he did it right. He made people care about those scores. He made people care about Ottumwa. He put Ottumwa on the map. He brought those first professional video game players together. He brought those first great players together. They weren't sporadic. They weren't all over the U.S. They weren't in a tournament here and a tournament there. He gave it validity. He gave it legitimacy that, hey, this is a sport. This is competitive play. These people work hard to get these scores. And one thing Walter did is he always respected everybody. He always mentored everybody. So to me, he was the first one that put it together. There's a lot of pieces to the puzzle. But again, if you're looking at puzzle pieces that aren't put together, it's a mess. It's putting those puzzle pieces together that makes the big picture.
I 100% agree with that. I just wanted to add something onto that, right? Prior to Walter Day, and you were around there during that time, was there any other adjudicators of the time?
You know, Triforce, honest, I was heavy into games, but that's, you know, I got to be honest with you. I had to leave it to Beaver childhood. My parents are still my best friends, but they liked Walter and they supported what I did. And the reason I told you that, tell everybody that, is to tell you this: is they supported. You know, I did good in school. I did good in extracurricular activities. They actually supported the play of video games. So I did do a lot of research. Now, back then, we didn't have the internet. You had to rely on magazines. You had to rely. But when Walter, you know, with Walter, you had the world at your fingertips of video games there. But other than maybe, like you said, a few magazines that were just keeping maybe tracks of, like Activision, maybe keeping track of their new games, which then went on into Twin Galaxies or Atari with, you know, their Atari Age magazine. There was no system, and we were, you know, we used to go on family vacations back then, and my dad would purposely every vacation give me $100 worth of quarters,
Wow.
and wherever we were going, we would take routes to visit different arcades, and we visited a lot of arcades because my dad was a gamer in his younger day too. And I'd never seen anybody keeping track of scores. But I will tell you, back then when we were making those routes, whenever I went to Wisconsin Dells or anywhere else, if there were multiple arcades in the city, they knew who Twin Galaxies were. They did. Even back then, they knew the Twin Galaxies. I mean, and so even in the early day, that's my point, is people in the early day, before the internet, before social media, before all this mass communication, was aware of what Walter was doing in Ottumwa, Iowa, and these places were hundreds of miles away.
And see, and I know for a fact, because I try to look for I tried to see if Walter had any type of competitions, but in the field that he was at. But as we all know, growing up in that age, is that playing video games, if you were known to actually be playing video games, you were an idiot. And I'm just going to be blunt about it. That's how people look at it. Like, you didn't have a life. Like, you need to be doing something more with your life than video games. I'm sure most of us have all grew up hearing stuff from our parents, our friends, and even teachers. Stop wasting your time playing video games. Nothing's going to come of it, and so forth and so forth. And
well, and you know, not to interrupt, but you are so right in 99%. You know, back then, I'm talking back then, you're so right, 99%. But you know, here it was a little different. Maybe it was because it's where it started. Maybe that's because of where the history started. Mm-hmm. But here it was taken a little. It was taken a little more seriously. And I'll tell you just a short story is, and I love to tell this story.
Sure, go on.
Because there was a gentleman in high school. he was the football quarterback. Okay. And I was a baseball player. I couldn't play football, and I was a little guy. I think I weighed 110, soaking wet. And we didn't talk much, you know. So I didn't know really what he thought of me, or you know, I thought he was okay. But we were at the arcade one day, and this is what Walter did. It leveled the playing field because we were playing track and field, which everybody I'm sure is familiar with. And you know, I started talking to this gentleman, and I said, "Man, you really did great on the field out there. You know, I wish I could do some of what you do." He looked straight back at me, and I'm serious, Triforce, and he goes, "Are you kidding me?" He said, "I wish I could play some of these games like you play." You know, here in Ottumwa, what Walter created leveled the playing field. You know, when you played video games here, I mean, sure, maybe we were kind of a bunch of misfits and we found a place where we fit in, but it really seemed he created an environment where everybody fit in, whether you were the captain of the football team or anything else. You dropped all that at the door, and you were friends in there. I mean, not only is this the birthplace of eSports, the undisputed birthplace of eSports, the undisputed video game capital of the world, it was a place where friendships were forged forever. I mean, forever. I still keep in touch with people that I met clear back in 1982, and I would not have known them, you know, if it wasn't for all the history we have here.
Well,
it just
video games tend to do that.
And it just excites me to, you know, I'm excited. I'm very community-oriented anyway, but I'm excited that, you know, no other city in America can claim video game capital of the world in the birthplace of esports. You know, Walter started that.
Speaking of that, I want to go over that because I just want to put that out there. A lot of guys in in this day and age, they say stuff like, why is it the video game capital of the world? And so you were there when they made the original proclamation by not only the mayor but the governor, correct?
Correct. I was present when the governor was here and the mayor. The gentleman who was mayor at the time is now one of our county supervisors. Gary Parker,
Hmm.
super guy. Uh, Terry Branstad, when he made the proclamation that Ottumwa, Iowa will be known as the video game capital of the world. Now, some people take that as, city government, it's so important because we have city government back in everything we do here. But to have a governor of a state come down and
Exactly.
recognize this is not an easy task because he was not asked. Number one, this is where people will rewrite their own history. He was not asked to make a video. He knew what was going on. He had discussions. He looked at it all. He
Hmm.
he knew. He's seen the vision. He's the one that made the proclamation it's video game capital of the world.
Now,
Um,
I want to interject. What I find funny is this is what I find funny, right? I'm sure at the time when Terry came down, along with Jerry Parker, and they made that actual proclamation and created the document and everything for the proclamation, people laughed and was like, video game capital of the world, you guys are stupid, this, that, and the other. Oh, come on, guys, video game capital, this is so ridiculous, blah, blah, blah. 30 years later, it's not funny anymore. Now you have people going, why are they the video game capital of the world? Says who? And it's like, says them 35 years ago, and no one argued it then. What's the problem now? And the reason why is because people know the implications of this now, 35 years later. They understand what it is. And like I said, there are forces marshaled on trying to hide that information or literally just completely delete the information so that they can say, hey, listen, let's get the video game capital of the world in one of the big major cities. Because you know what this is about. Video games is a $100 billion industry. And when you have enriched history such as competitive gaming, such as esports, where the the true weight of video games is in the context, which is the people. You know, people are going to start now. You know, people are now going to want a Hall of Fame. They're either going to want it in Las Vegas, or they're going to want it in Los Angeles, or they're going to want it in New York City. They're going to want it in a big city, and whatever. And this is where I'm like, you guys really had the vision to have saw this 35 years ago and said, before this blows up, we're going to claim it now. Claimed it, put it in writing twice, because I was at the 2010 International Video Game Hall of Fame, the Big Bang event, where they what was it again? Reinitiated the proclamation. I actually have a huge copy of well, not the physical copy, but I took a picture of the proclamation, and the proclamation is online somewhere. Like a couple people took it online and put it out there, or whatever the case may be. And there's a few stories on there as well. So Atomwa they really took the time to say, let's look at our history and let's see what they really invested in documenting that history so that years later they can make something of it. And that's where I see the future of Atomwa, where it really is going to start to take form now, especially after the industrial esports revolution has just taken its full strangle monopoly hold on the industry. 2018, the suits are about to get medieval on everyone right now, and they don't even see it coming. So I find it funny, but you guys are in a real good position right now, and I think that you guys, like, I really, that's why I'm in full support. I want to make sure that the true history is preserved from foreign or domestic people who want to fight against something that's been etched in stone. I just don't understand why people are fighting against it. And that's really what this entire show is about, the invisible war. And I want to put that question to you. Why? Forget about the people, the foreign people. We understand why. It's a business thing, positioning, equity, and all that other stuff, marketing. Completely understand. So they're going to do what they got to do, and we just have to respect the enemy forces for what they are. But I can't wrap my head around the domestic forces that are fighting and destroying its own legacy from the inside out. Can you shed some light on that, please?
Well, Triforce, that's a tough question. I wish I could shed some light on there, but there are a lot of negative forces out there, and I believe it. I'm just going to say it how I see it. Is a lot of some of those negative forces were made here. I mean, there are people who competed in Ottumwa back in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
There are people who played games back in the 80s and did well, and still want to turn on their own history and turn on the very people that respected them and revered them. And now all of a sudden, it's turned into, this is a lie, this is a lie, this is a lie. Somebody didn't do this and somebody didn't do that. Triforce, I was there.
Mm-hmm.
I seen it happen. I was there. And I sometimes, I'm like you, I can't wrap my head around it. I can't wrap my head around why we would come after our own. We should be a community, of one team, of moving it forward. But there's those that still insist on moving it backward. I am privileged to be part of a great committee here in Ottumwa. Jerry Byram, Terry Bertlow, Jenny Bertlow, Michael Dudley, just groups of people. And there's more, and I don't want to forget anybody, but there's more. And it's hard to shed light on why we would deny where the history is. Because Triforce, we don't want to hog this history. We don't want to hold this history hostage. We want to share this history with the world. We want them to come. We want them to take part. But not only do we want to celebrate the history, we want a positive future for everybody. We want to welcome everybody here. We would love for people to come see the video game capital of the world. With open arms, you would all be VIPs. Believe me. Anybody who's listening, please believe me, you would all be VIPs. Please, if you're hearing me, turn all that negativity to a positive note. Don't hate the history. Don't try to rewrite the history. Embrace it. It's a good history.
Yeah. It's
a wonderful history. It has nothing to do. The history has nothing to do. We don't need to tie it to a person or tie it to a town. It happened to start here. It could have started anywhere. Walter Day was a smart man, and he's seen in the future. He had that vision.
Yeah, that's a fact. That is a fact. I don't care what anyone says, what they say. And this is the thing is, I think some people are just upset that he actually had the vision to see it. There were so many naysayers. In 2002, when I started my team, I had already did the history on competitive gaming in the whole 9 yards. And when I saw, because I come from, I'm the mid-generation. I was born in the 70s. I started playing video games in the early 80s, but I was too young to really comprehend any of the major stuff. But my brother, who was like 2 years older than me, he knew about Twin Galaxy. He used to tell me about it. I was like, what's that? And he's like, that's where all the real guys who were in video games. And I was like, yeah, but like I could never be like that. And I grew up learning about Twin Galaxies. It wasn't until I came into, obviously, as an adult. When I became an adult, that's when I decided to say, let me go research the history. And when I found out about the photo shoot and what Walter built and getting together with Guinness and Nintendo, the Nintendo World Championships, the Blockbuster World Championships, and then that's when CPL started coming. These are all 90s stuff. This is not even, we haven't even turned into the 2020s, the 21st century. And then I heard about some guy getting the perfect Pac-Man, which is Billy Mitchell, which we'll have Billy later on, and we're going to get into that one later on. When I saw all of that, I was like, wow. And the classic gaming community and the fighting game community, those two major communities had no idea about its own history in esports. First-person shooters, RTS, those communities, and sort of like StarCraft, Quake, Unreal Tournament, all of those guys, they knew what esports was. the word esports was made in the late 90s. That's not something that came up in the last 5 years. A lot of people think, oh, well, esports was just made 5 years ago. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, that's an insult to guys like Fatality, who paved that, at that time, the modern age. And he knew where it's coming from. Thresh, Dang, and a lot of those guys, Rafiq, Street Runner, a lot of those guys, you know, they came from those 90s era, and those guys knew about you guys in the 80s. So it's like the generations were pulling them over each time. So Walter set the foundation, then the next generation pulled it over, and then revolutionized the foundation, and then that's when my generation, well, I was around for the time, but then when I started getting involved in the whole esports stuff, I was like, you know something? Let me make a team, take it into the fighting game community, and develop esports in the fighting game community, because they don't even realize what they have. And when I got into the fighting game community with my team, I got heckled. What the hell is this crap? You know, who's this Jamaican guy with a power glove talking about esports? What is esports? Like, video games will never be a sport. The day video games start filling up stadiums and stuff like that will be the day when hell freezes over. Well, hell froze over 1,000 times already, because now it is being held in stadiums, or at least, you know, convention centers the size of Madison Square Garden. But the point here is that a lot of people don't understand that each generation someone carries it over until we've hit this generation, and this generation doesn't want to carry it over. This generation wants to go, no, that wasn't esports back then. And I ask the question, why not? Esports is when you have stuff like broadcast on national TV, and you know, it's written, it's public. The stuff that we do is published, and people, it's a spectator port. People watches it, and all that other stuff, and your stats that's kept in. And I'm like, okay, so what's your problem? What are you talking about? None of that was done in the 80s, and I'm like, what are you talking about? All of that was done in the 80s. Was it done to the level that we're doing it now? No, because back then we didn't have the technology or the resources. Or back then, the technology and the resources didn't exist. But for what technology and resource did exist, all of those things were done. There was a live studio audience that would watch a video game championships thanks to ABC's That's Incredible. There were qualifiers with the video game Olympics from Walter Day's Twin Galaxies that led up to that broadcast world championship that crowned our first world championship. Life magazine documented and photographed right there on the screen, the 1982 Life magazine photo reunion, which is coming up on this November. But at that time, with the photo shoot of the first 19 superstars in gaming. So we're talking about gamers across the nation. In 1983-84, then you had the World Olympics, where you had Japan and Italy to be facing off against the USA. I'm talking about, and they did this all on dial-up phones and newspapers. That's the resources Walter had, and he did it on that. Now today we have the internet. So of course things is easier to be done, and it can be done at a grander scale, which is why it's called the industrial esports revolution. They're industrializing esports.
What's funny about everything you say, not funny, haha, but like what's coincidental and another true story is when you walked into the old Twin Galaxies location, there was a front room that had about 10 games in it, and there was a wooden L-shaped counter, and then you went to the back, and that's where the majority of the games were. We were standing at the counter one night, and I'm not even kidding you. I got goosebumps thinking about this story. I was a kid, and I was so excited because I'd just gotten a high score, and I looked at Walter, and Billy Mitchell was standing there, and there was a couple other players, and I looked up and I said, wow, you know, maybe I could be famous someday. And Walter looked back at me and said, someday these will be, people will come to see people play video games. He said, someday this will be, video games will be a major event. Triforce, that was back in the 80s. Mm-hmm. That was in the 80s. He was telling me this. He had the vision of the future. He had it then. You know, I really think he was ahead of the technology. If he'd had the technology back then that we have today, who knows? I mean, oh my gosh, you know. But what I can't understand is you talk about the new generation not wanting to recognize the history. It irritates me, but okay, it's your generation. But what really gets me is people from my generation turning on it.
Yeah, that's the
People
crazy part.
from my generation killing their own history, killing the very people who, you can take all those high scores back then, and Triforce, I'm honest. I speak bluntly and I'm honest. Take all those gamers back in my generation, all those gamers that did all those great things first, nobody would have cared if it wasn't for Walter.
This
If
is true.
Walter wouldn't have put them on the map, nobody would have cared.
It's true.
If Billy Mitchell wouldn't have been such a good ambassador back then, nobody would have cared. And they want to turn on their own. Like I said, these are people I looked up to when I was a kid and I revered, and now I feel ill thinking about it. Like, wow, I respected them, I looked up to them,
Well,
and we turn like that.
but wait,
I mean,
but you should still respect them. There
I
be
respect their accomplishments. I do. I respect their accomplishments. Triforce, I was there, for I got to watch a lot of those accomplishments. I will never, ever take that away from them. To me, they're great athletes. Gamers are great athletes. They did great things, and I'm still impressed by what they did. Their outlook on things nowadays doesn't impress me very much.
well, if what I respect all of in our era, we call these guys the elder gods. I respect them whether they like their own history or not. Um, the reason why is because I understand the game. They're simply being manipulated, and they don't understand. So they're not the problem. They're actually not the problem. They're simply tools, sadly, that's being used for other people's personal agendas. But they don't seem to understand that they're not going to win. They don't understand they've lost this war a long time ago. Anybody wanted to...
Some of the older gamers, in fact, clear back in my generation, to dispute history when you were there, I can't understand it. I know people see the same things I see. No, we were there. Why attack it? Why not embrace it? I mean, they don't understand. When you were in Ottumwa, Iowa, and you were back from that era, you were seeing the beginning of something special. You were seeing a life-changing, history-changing thing going on. And now to not embrace that and to physically, or not physically, but to what do I want to say, to attack verbally the people that helped move this forward, I don't understand. And I think about this daily, Trevor. I think about it. Like, why would, I gamed with, I'm not going to mention any names, but hey, I gamed with you back then. We were friends back then. I know we seen the same thing. I know we loved the same things. I know we were excited when we would go down and get a high score. Or, us younger ones, we were excited when we could watch these guys get a high score. And now you deny it. And you say it didn't happen. And you say it wasn't this way. And you say it wasn't. Come on.
Well, fortunately, there have been things put in place that will preserve their histories, whether they are arguing against it or not. So it'll be a bunch of old men that will look back and say, you know something, I didn't know any better. But to me, I don't. The people making the mistakes, I actually forgive them because I know they're being manipulated. That's just a reality. I know what's going on. It is people who are, in terms of their age, from that time. Much like me, I'm 40 years old. I was from that time, but I wasn't there. So it's people like my age who weren't there, who think they have this influence, and they're trying to create alignments and forces with other people. They try to take things that are said and change the narrative of it so it fits their narrative so they can have their argument and push their argument. That worked on those guys. That doesn't work on me. And the best part
it
of it
doesn't work on me.
Well, I'm glad it doesn't work on you guys. I'm glad Walter passed the torch to you guys, you and Jerry and Terry and the rest of the guys there in Iowa. The reality, and this is the best part of it, everything was written down. The greatest thing Walter could have ever done was document everything. Now, is everything he documented 100 million% accurate? Of course not. Anything ever is? No. But the general elements are. We can always sort and fix what needs to be fixed in the house or whatever the case may be to make sure things are accurate. Not a problem with that. But the core
And you know, you're
is there.
right. It was all written down. And you know, some of these people that I have in mind when I speak, believe me, the ones that are my age, the ones that are from my era, that sometimes I feel have turned or have gotten negative, we would love nothing more than to have them back. You know what I mean? We
Yep.
would love nothing more than to have them part of the team again. We were a team back then, you know, so, you know, that's what I don't understand. You know, we were all so tight. We were all so, you know, the history's the history. That's the way it is. You know, you can say it's something, but if that's what it really wasn't, and, you know, maybe you had planned on getting to this in a minute, but it's just verbal attacks on people, and I'm just going to say it. You can stop me if you don't want me to say it, but Billy Mitchell. I've known Billy Mitchell when I was a kid. When I used to go down there, and I used to hang out with Billy. Billy was older than us. He was a little older than us. But I hear all these things about Billy, about how he's not a nice guy, and how he says this, and how he didn't do that. You know, I know Billy firsthand when he was young. You know, he treated us kids like gold. He treated us younger ones were nice. He took us under his wing. I have never known Billy to be anything but a nice stand-up guy. Billy let my 8-year-old daughter interview him, and my daughter just adores him, and he's so good to my kids. He's everybody I've seen him interact with. He's so pleasant and so giving, and shares what he has. And I guarantee you, with the talks I've had, nobody wants somebody to be successful more than Billy. Everybody Billy talks to, nobody wants success for everybody else more than him.
Well, he's smart. He understands why.
But when I hear these things, like, you know, I suppose we'll get to this in a minute, but like something I heard today on a video about a discrepancy. You know, Billy Mitchell was the first one to get a perfect game on Pac-Man.
No, there's no discrepancy there.
There's no, they were posing a discrepancy. There's no discrepancy. He did it. He was the first one to get it. He celebrated for being the first one to get it. But there again, you know, somebody has to bring something up. Now, they introduced a letter in this video. In this video, there's no mention of a score. There's no mention of anybody else who done it. Nobody can find the person that they originally said done it. And you know, the familiarity, I mean, anybody back then could have said a perfect game. I could have played Centipede and got 25,000 points and claimed, hey, that's a perfect game, because nobody knew what it was. You know, Billy Mitchell later on found the 9 extra thoughts, did all the homework. It took him so many tries. He was the first one. Yet people have to take his achievements and attack it. And like I said, he's never been anything to me but a role model. I have never seen this mean side of Billy that people bring up. I have never seen this deceitful side of Billy that people bring up, ever.
Well,
not even a clue of it, not even a hint of it.
Here's the reality. In order for you to see this so-called mean side of Billy, you have to be a competitor. And here, let Triforce get real. I'm about to get real. I'm gonna choose my words carefully when I'm gonna get real. I just won't be cursing. Competitors, this is the reality behind it. Competitors are, some of them are cowards. Straight out, raw, flat. Guys are cowards. A lot of them want to bash Billy, but I have a question for some of these guys. When gaming wasn't popular, gaming in the 80s, I know this for a fact because I used to get teased for it. You're a nerd. This guys try to jump me inside the arcades, and that's the city life. So I can imagine when you're in the like Central America or whatever the case may be, and if you're not playing football or basketball or baseball and you're playing video games, yeah, you're gonna get beat up. These guys didn't grow up and push that. They really didn't. They kept it to themselves. They were private about it. They did their little scores amongst a small little circle, but nobody put that on their back and carried it. No one who. Why wasn't any of these guys? And I'm not saying any of them. Let me right. Why weren't there more people to atlas the foundation Walter built? Walter built it for the players, but how many players atlased what the foundation that Walter built for them? How many? We do know that Billy's always been there, all the way to where he is now. Billy doesn't even have to do any of this. Guys like him and Steve Sanders is a trial lawyer. He doesn't have to do any of this. He can be like, this is beneath me. Like, I don't have time for this. I'm a trial lawyer. I have a family. I'm good. I don't need to do any of this garbage. This is a waste of time for me. Same thing. Billy has a successful business company, but they never turned their back on what they grew up with. They atlased it. They went out there.
That is so true. Billy lives in Florida, and he still comes back and supports Ottumwa.
Ottumwa, Iowa. Why? You're in, like, my friends always say this, Triforce, where are you going? A video game capital of the world. Oh, really? Where's this? The first thing they say is Las Vegas. No, not Las Vegas, Los Angeles. I'm like, no, it's in Iowa. Iowa? You mean cornfield? I'm like, yeah. And they're like, why is the Hall of Fame in Iowa? I'm like, where's the International Rock and Roll Hall of Fame located in? Isn't it in Cleveland? Why is it in New York? Where's the Baseball Hall of Fame located in? I'm like, it's not about what's popular or whatever. It's about where it came from. So I'm like, so what if it's in Iowa? Leave it, let it be in Iowa. Like, that's what it is. So, but getting back to this entire thing, very few players champion the cause that and the foundation that Walter Day built. Very few. And a lot of those guys' peers at the time laughed at them. I used to have conversations with guys back in 2007 when I was on MySpace, talking to some of the ancient legends and some of the other video games. And they're like, these guys are so stupid, man. I have a family now. I don't have time for this garbage or blah, blah, blah. And they make up all these stuff. And then you go, okay. Now, 2015, 2016, 2017, guys are like, oh, man, he's a fraud. He's a this. Wait, whoa. Why are you involved in this? Like, I thought you had more important things to do. It wasn't important with the games. When they were claiming it back then, you never said anything. You laughed at them. Now, they're being recognized for their claims. Now, you have a problem with it. Do I? I smell jealousy. Is that what that is? Is that what that is? Because none of them came around then. Because there was no money in it. There was nothing that they could tangibly, they couldn't put their hands on the tangible benefits of it. When Billy just did it because it was like, this is a part of my legacy. What Billy?
You know, when Billy comes here, I will tell you, I don't want to put out private information there, but this is the Ottumwa Video Game Capital of the World. Our new committee, we've had 5 or 6 events, and I will tell you, Billy, on his own dime, has flown from Florida and said, when he gets here, he says, what do you want from me? What do you want me to do? How can I help? He hasn't received a dime.
100% true. He comes out of pocket. He comes out of pocket.
To support us, to support this town, to support Video Game Capital of the World. People love Billy here. People love you here. I mean, you guys come back and you do it on your own dime, and you support Ottumwa, and you both are great ambassadors, to the game. And, I don't know how else to explain dedication.
Well,
I mean,
I know for a fact, I've had conversations with Billy, and I tell Billy, I said, Billy, why do you do it? And Billy would say, well, why do you do it? You weren't there at Ottumwa. And I was like, because it's a part of history. He's like, exactly. There's a personal self-gratification. You've invested a certain amount of effort and time into that. You can't just throw that away. We all want to be remembered for something when we leave this world. No matter how big, no matter how small, we want to be remembered for something. And he's a part of a very significant part of history, especially when what he does is responsible for this mammoth that you see with esports in this day and age. And people are mad. What they're mad about is that they didn't take a stand when he did. And now he and Walter and a handful of others are being recognized for what their contributions for creating this foundation to what it is to this day. Me,
Yeah, but you know, if you ask Billy,
Hmm?
if you ask Billy, you know, Billy is one, and Walter, Billy and Walter, never heard a negative word about anybody from their mouth, no matter how bad it gets. And one time I had a discussion with Billy, and he still doesn't get sour. He told me, to this day, he said, Bill, there's room for everybody.
There
There's
is
room for
room.
everybody.
That's the funny
And
part. There is room for everybody.
but he
Every
wants to help them get that. He wants to help them get that. That's why I don't understand why they just
because
try to tear people like him down.
they don't see it that way. The issue here is they're not concerned about looking at their contributions and what they looking at their contributions and saying, okay, how can I how can I how can I package my contributions and then put it towards the whole and make this thing bigger. They're more concerned about, I don't like the so-called contributions Billy Mitchell made. And I'm like, what? Like, why are you focusing on that? They're like, focus on your stuff. And some of these guys have no contributions. That's why they attack. They really don't have any contributions. Johnny come latelys, guys who were there at the time, born at the time, but really didn't do anything then until the King of Kong movie came out. Then now they want to get involved, and it's like, all right, get involved, but like they want to throw mud. Like, all right, look, why are you throwing mud? Just get involved. The best part of this entire thing, and this is the vantage point, I want to say this publicly because I want it to be on record for people to be able to come back and rewind. The best part of this, Bill, is that Walter is no longer involved with Twin Galaxies. So when people say, so Triforce, what's in it for you? Like, well, Twin Galaxies is owned by somebody else, and I'm not really involved in Twin Galaxies like that anymore. I'm like, I still respect Twin Galaxies for what it is. Shout outs to Jace Hall for what he's doing to maintain Twin Galaxies as the custodian and so forth, and his contributions to esports with his esports team Echo Fox, which right now is like body in the fighting game community big time with Sonic Fox and so forth. But you know, when I get into the Hall of Fame, there's nothing for me to gain. It's like Triforce can't be doing this because Walter's going to give him something or Atumwa's going to give him something. There's nothing in it for me.
Well, and actually, people can't say that at all because you know the people who say that at all are not thinking it through. Okay, so you are in the Hall of Fame. You're being inducted. You've made it. So when you take stances like this, when you speak the truth and when you do this, you're actually putting yourself more at risk. You're not playing it safe to get in the Hall of Fame. You earned your way into the Hall of Fame.
Well,
you earned your way. So the people who are thinking that, oh, Triforce is doing this because he wants in the Hall of Fame. Well, number one, you're already there. Number two, you earned it. And number three, by taking stances like you and I take, sometimes that's unpopular. So how can they even think that?
Well, the thing that this is the best part of it. I'm not a part of Twin Galaxies. I'm not a part of Atumwa. I'm not a part of Atumwa. Let me phrase that properly. I'm a part of Atumwa.
We consider you part of Atumwa, though, because we know you are one of our biggest supporters. And again, just like Billy, you come here on your own dime, and you came to support us, and you support us all the time. So, you know, don't think that goes unappreciated either.
And I'm not saying that. I know you guys appreciate me and whatnot. The reason why I'm saying this is because I want to make my line in the sand be drawn clear to all the forces marshaled against Atumwa and Walter's legacy and history. See, I run my own esports team. I have my own dynasty. With all respect due to Walter Day and Twin Galaxies, I don't need Twin Galaxies. I don't need Atumwa to do what I do in esports. And I
No,
say,
but you still come back and help.
and
You
and,
still
and,
see
and
that
that
speaks
and,
volumes.
and that's why I'm saying what I'm saying, because I want people to understand that I'm doing this, the defense for the history of esports, because I can, and it brings me great pleasure to know that those who will stand up to me, if you're sitting here and say, how can we destroy Triforce? You can't. You can't take, there's nothing, I don't get anything from anybody. That's the whole part. You know, when I had an issue 2014, I was trapped in France. I called into the retro gaming community. Less than 5 people from the retro gaming community helped me. Many of them said leave them there to be trapped in France and stuff like that. And I was like, ah, okay. So the few people that help me are in support from Atumwa, so that I don't owe anyone anything. I don't need anything from Twin Galaxies. I don't need anything from Atumwa. So everything I do is because I do it literally for the love. I love this. I love the enemies who continue to attack the history, because it gives me great pleasure to destroy them. This is like a game for me. It's a real good game because it requires the mind. And a lot of these guys that they try to make their narratives, they're so corny. I'm letting you guys know right now, you're actually whack at what you do. Like, you guys really, like, some of these lies that you guys make up, the holes are right there and you don't even look at the holes. It's like, actually, no, actually they do that on purpose because they think the audience that's watching it are actually that stupid. They actually think, so when I saw that whole thing with Billy Mitchell and there's like, Midway wrote a letter. Timeout. The arcade manufacturer wrote a letter about the game. Don't you usually send this to like the people that made the character, like the creators? Don't send this to the arcade manufacturer. Like, what does the arcade manufacturer have anything to do with anything? Then in the very letter, it doesn't state the score. It just says you've received the perfect score. Really?
That's my point. Back then, I could have walked up to anything
and said,
oh, I got the perfect score.
Yeah, exactly. So what is the perfect score? Like, when the game maxes out at 99999, that's the perfect score? Because like the perfect score is supposed to be 3 million and change. Now 999 and 3 million, like, I don't understand that. And number 2, who adjudicated this first person score when he so-called did it? Where was he? What adjudication organization was around at that time to take in that score? That's another question I was gonna ask. Number 2, can anyone trace that letter back to Midway? Like the situation with Todd Rogers, when everyone said, oh, Todd Rogers didn't do it. Todd Rogers like, what do you mean? I got the certificate. You could go back and ask David Crane. He worked for Activision. I went and asked Guinness, and Guinness is like, we have sworn evidence and testimony from Activision themselves. You could go back to them. Can someone go back to Midway?
They had sworn testimony from David Crane, who made the game.
Who made? That's my point.
Yes,
that's my point.
Yes, this is legitimate.
So I'm like, okay, so this guy that got this letter from the arcade provider, the guys who ported the game for the arcade to be in there, can we contact any of those people to verify that? Another question. The guy, Bill, Balam, I forgot how to pronounce his last name. I don't want to slaughter his last name. The gentleman that they said that the letter came from or was for, did he ever show that letter before? And when Bill Mitchell put out his press kit saying he's going for the world record in 1999, and that was all over the place and throughout the classic gaming community, heck, I'll give them an entire year. July of 2000. When the record was already, when Bill's record was already in the book, why didn't this person take this letter and go to a news organization and say, no, they've awarded the wrong person with the record for the first Pac-Man score. I'm the first person to do it. Here's the letter from the manufacturing company.
Well,
blah, blah, blah.
even the letter alludes to somebody done it before him.
Well,
and the letter doesn't say anything about any video, any pictures, any proof, any settings, anything.
Exactly. What were the settings? I spoke to a couple of people, which when I have Billy on, I'm going to talk about this because I have to find out if this is true. Now, I'm not saying this is true. I'm just putting this out there that It's been stated by various sources. I gotta confirm with Billy so I can get the full details that the guy who did this at first used some type of pause mechanism in the game when he went for the score. And that's why it was never legitimate. That's why the person never stepped forward. Like, but wait, you can pause? Were there rules back then? What was the setup at first? Or is this just about getting a 999?
So yeah, but you know, what's funny is it brings us back to the beginning of the conversation. There were no rules till Walter came along. There was no standard play until Walter came.
It's just like the guy who got 2-point-something million in Gorf. And they found out later it's a 13-year-old kid and you can't get 2-point-something million in Gorf. Kid just said he got it. So, yeah. So now when you put that into perspective, this brings up my entire point that I was making in the video that I made earlier. You can golf a 59 in your backyard. You can go down to New Jersey and go to one of their golf courses and golf a 41 if that's even humanly possible. If you don't do it at Augusta, it doesn't count. And the difference with Billy and all of these other people who've also gained the perfect score, because I'm not sitting here saying that the perfect score wasn't gained by Billy. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that other people did not do it. What I'm saying is that the other people who did it did not go through the protocol needed to make sure that, you know, everything, the I's were dotted, the T's were crossed, and the commercial recognition was made so that it can be a part of recorded history. I had a conversation with a representative from Guinness. I said, hey, you guys keep having in your book, a lady in here in Jamaica died 2 weeks ago. She was at 116 years old. She was considered the oldest person in Guinness Book of World Records, right? She just died recently, and so a new person is now the oldest person. And I said, what about that Chinese guy who was 252 years old? You know what Guinness said? We need some type of recorded document, some type of evidence, something to show that this guy was 250 years old, or 252 years old, or it's just someone saying it. So, you know, without that, we will consider that this is a part of history, but it's not recorded history. And if it's not recorded history, we can't put it in the Guinness Book of World Records. That is called having a system.
But the whole point is Billy and Walter don't want to kill history. You know, Billy's as competitive as everybody else. You know, I mean, I've never heard the guy say, you know, he is a competitor. I'm sure there's been words between him and other people during competitions, but he promotes that competition. You know,
but that's always happens in every competition. Michael Jordan curses at people on the court while he's playing basketball, and then right after that, go out to dinner with the guys he beat for the NBA championships. So anyone,
Billy's competitive like that. Billy will beat somebody's high score and then turn right around and help you.
Exactly.
Let me show you how to do this.
But that's
Let me show you how to play this.
That is how competition is, and anyone who's expecting democracy or fair playing competition, then they don't know what competition is. Like,
exactly.
That's so stupid. So someone brings up a point. They said Billy Mitchell made a truce with the guy from Canada about going to an event together and going for the perfect score at the same time. And something happened, and Billy went behind his back and did the perfect score before him. And I had a conversation with the guy, and he's like, but Triforce, you don't think that's scumbaggish? I said, well, this is a competition. And I'm going to look at it like Michael Jordan. Right before the ball game for the NBA World Championships, you're going to say, hey, look, Michael, let's have a truce, right? You know, I'm going to go for 35 points. You can go for 35 points. And so it makes us both look good and whatever, you know, and then we can go for the championship and let the best person win. Michael Jordan is going to look at the guy and be like, this guy is scared of me. That's why he's talking to me about this. Like, no, right now while we're playing, screw you. I'm going to beat you. I'm going to drop 51 on you, and I'm going to win the championship, and I'm going to say you're a bum. And then afterward, we can talk about it and be nice about it. And Michael Jordan has done that. So has Larry Bird. So many different sports players have done this. This is the nature of competitive anything. Like, you don't make friends with people you're competing against. And anyone who comes to you with that competitive spirit and does that, then no, you know, you go, oh, okay, you know in your mind, psychologically, the guy is scared of you. He's not that confident. That's why he's coming to you. And it's called smelling blood in the water. And I'm sorry, but this is a competition. I smell blood in the water. I'm going to go after you. So if you want to wait until the turn of the century for you to go get the record, if I can get the record before you, I'm going to go get the record before you. We can't share this record. Only one person can get it. So I said, even if that story's true, what's the problem? I don't understand. This happens today in esports today. In this day and age, far worse than that story. Far worse than that story. On levels where guys get beat up for it. And this happens in fighting games. This happens in Riot games. This happens in Dota. This happens in well, it happened in StarCraft back at the time. Oh man, first person shooter, Call of Duty. Oh, this happens 24/7. That's the regular. So when people bring that up to me, I'm like, I don't understand. I'm confused here. What do you try? It's the moral behind it. Moral? Did he break a rule? No. It's fair game. As long as he didn't break a rule, it is fair game. Now you can say he's a scumbag. He probably is. But he's competing. And his job is to win. So that is not a conversation. That's foolishness. Anybody who knows anything about competitive anything knows what I'm saying is real. I'm just keeping it 100% real in that particular point of view. But these claims against him getting the first Pac-Man and how all these other people look. These other people did not get it commercially recognized. It doesn't matter. I'm in the same boat as Billy Mitchell. I have the same situation with Tetris DS. Guinness awarded me the record, maxed out the score 99999 straight across. Guinness gave me the record. Guinness stated at the time, Triforce was the first person to get the perfect Tetris DS score. Now, in my mind, I'm like, well, in reality, no, that's not true. I'm sure when the game was being developed and someone was testing the game, someone probably maxed out the game, see what the bugs was in. He was the first. Or a month after the game was sold, they did that. A year after the game was sold, they did that. I got the score, I think, a year and a half after the game came out. So, from a reality point of view, no, I don't think I'm the first. But from an adjudicating point of view, through Guinness, recognized through Guinness, I am the first, commercially. That's all that matters. Same thing with the standing, the line for the Nintendo Wii U, Wii, 3DS, and stuff like that. Triforce, you're not the first to get the Wii U. That's kind of obvious because the first Nintendo Wii U system that came off the assembly belt is sitting in the president of Japan's, right on his desk. I'm quite sure of that. However, from the point of view of the first official sold Nintendo Wii U from the company that created the event, that held a line that said this is the commercial first person sold, that was me. Same thing for C&D. I'm sure there were guys out there that had Nintendo Switches long before C&D while he was sitting on the line. But he was sold the first commercial one. This very same point and principle stands for Billy Mitchell. So this little argument about him not being the first is foolishness. It's just stupid.
You know what else is foolishness about it? You know what else is foolishness about it? What? Is I don't want to mention names, but the person in the video was not there for any of the history.
Oh, that's the best part.
Yeah, was not there for any of it. Completely none of it. Not even in the newer eras. He is relying on information he was told. Did not fact check. Did not check to see if it's Miss Novak.
Why didn't you just call Billy and ask Billy to come on a podcast with him to talk about the situation? Why create a piece that stirs up controversy through drama and could potentially set a narrative? You know why? Because that was the point.
It had to be the point. It had to be malicious in intent. Because, like I said, the person in that video, don't know him, could be the nicest guy in the world, never met him. But he didn't have his facts. He wasn't there when any of this happened. Any of this. So that's
And,
another
wait, hold on, hold on,
irritating.
hold on. And not only was he there, but the people providing that information to him weren't
We're
there
also
either.
not there. Exactly.
That's
That was my next point.
that's the best
Nobody.
point. They're relying on dudes who came a generation after. Holy smokes. This is ridiculous. This is crazy.
Right.
Oh.
They were there for none of it, and it kills me that. Okay, let's say this today. Let's say this about Billy today. You weren't even there. You weren't even. You can come to Ottumwa right now. You can't even show me where the original Twin Galaxies was. You can't even show me. Really.
It's a bunch of foolishness. I'm sure there's some guy out there in India that set the first Pac-Man score in 19 something whatever, providing wherever the game was. And I'm being sarcastic when I say that.
Again, it goes back. Let's just pretend. Let's just pretend for a minute. And this is pretend for everybody listening.
No. You don't have to pretend.
I'm just saying. Let's just say. Let's say that the perfect game of Pac-Man was played 1,000 times before Billy did it. We're just pretending. But you know what the trick is? Billy got people to care. Billy got people to notice.
That's called
excited that he did it.
Commercial recognition, recorded history. That is when it counts. You can do it in your backyard. That is great. You don't do it at Augusta, it doesn't count. Right now, here's an example. I played my Arcade Archives, Mario Brothers, right? It's a game that came out from Arcade Archives and whatnot. And I was going for try to get the high score on their virtual leaderboards, 999 straight across, right? And I said, let me stream this. And I decided to stream the later levels around level 88 or something going on into it. And I got the score. And the score popped up on my stream and because it was live game and everything. And due to the way the game was created, the game does not record your score when it rolls over. So it never put it up on the leaderboard. I sent it to Hamster. Hamster saw me do the score live or whatever the case may be, and it's on there. Now, I could go and boast. I got the first perfect, well, it's actually not perfect. I'm off by 100 points. But I have the highest score in Mario Brothers in Arcade Archives. I can just go around and saying that. Whoever goes and gets 999, 990 and plays the full game, records the full game from start to beginning, just turning on the switch to everything and submit that to Twin Galaxies or Guinness and it gets published in Guinness, they're the official first one, not me. And that's me talking about my own record.
Exactly,
that's me talking about my own record. They're the first one. Yes, so what if I did it at my home and I was streaming it? That was on my own private time. It was not done publicly. It was not done by the rule set. It was not done by none of those things. So it doesn't count.
Exactly. I agree with you 100%. And, that is you. So what you're telling me here is, and this is what I'm hearing, is if somebody did that perfect score tomorrow, you would celebrate them, not tear them down.
No, of course, I'd be like, good stuff. Because I'm over here trying to get that last 100 points, so I could submit it in. But to be honest with you, I have the Game Boy Advance one already, so I'm not even sure if I even want to turn it in. Because I'm like, to me, I'm not... Let someone else get the records. Like, there's a billion versions of these Mario games. I have one of them. That's good enough for me. So I'm not one of those guys who have to come up off of somebody else's record. That's not me. I want to share it. So whoever wants to go for it, they can go for it. Big deal. I already proved I can roll over the game. That's good enough for me. And I'm just sick and tired, which is why I'm so glad I'm going to the Hall of Fame, because I'm just sick and tired of all of this. I just want to be able to play video games and just have fun and whatever the case may be. But you're right. I wouldn't tear down somebody, and if someone got it and put it into the Twin Galaxies, I'd be like, that's the first guy that got it. But Triforce, you recorded it. Yeah, but I didn't go through the proper protocols and stuff like that, and that's when it counts. You got to go through the proper stuff. So yes, I'm telling people right now, there are people who got 9 or whatever the perfect score for Pac-Man that will be before Bill Mitchell, but they didn't do it. They didn't get it adjudicated properly, and so it doesn't count. Like, you can sit there and pout till you're blue in the face. This is what rules are for. You got to have some type of governance.
I still truly believe in my heart that, when he found the 9 extra dots, I still truly believe in my heart he was the first one.
Me, it doesn't
maybe.
matter. To me, all that matters is the recorded history. I don't care about what other people think and their little opinions and their little emotions about it. That's nice. Did the person go? You can't do something and then not report it, and then later on someone does it and report it, and then come out later on saying, no, that's not fair. I did it first. If you did it first, why didn't you report it?
Right, and Billy's an all-around good gamer. He's an all-around good gamer who shares his knowledge, who shares his self. Yet there's still that negativity, and I don't understand. I mean,
Well,
he celebrates people's accomplishments, and it takes people like Billy to set that bar. If you didn't set a bar, or if Billy didn't set a bar, there'd be, can you imagine? There would be nothing to. It takes people to set those bars high.
well, when we get to Billy, I guess we'll go into the whole thing with Billy and Pac-Man. Right now, I want to kind of focus more on a Tumble with you. And so I'm going to get ready to call Billy in about, we have 20 more minutes. So I want to use this last 20 minutes to talk about the video game capital of the world's major event, Galaxy of, well, it's actually a Tumwa Twin Galaxies Arcade and Pinball Presents. Galaxy of Gaming, Atoma's old school pinball arcade, and the International Video Game Hall of Fame, the 1982 Life magazine photo reunion, and so forth. Let's go over those things for me. So I'm going to give you the floor. Let's talk about it. Tell us what's going to go down at this event, and give us the run through, give us the play-by-play of what this event entails.
Well, I think the most important part about this event is what we're supporting. Again, to stay on a positive note, we're very community minded. When we started a little over a year ago, a little more than a year ago, we started with the idea of we want to move gaming forward, we want to move history forward, positive, and with that model, that includes the city of Ottumwa, helping other businesses, helping tourism, helping small businesses get started, and most of all, giving back to charity. So I do want to tell people, we are, we Heartland Humane Society, which is a no-kill animal shelter, we've supported. The food bank, a local volunteer fire department, we supported the fire service, and other places. We this time we chose Wounded Warrior, which the men and women who fight for our country, we have the utmost respect for them. We want to do what we can, so we chose Wounded Warrior, but we also want to give everybody a fun time. So we're going to open Thursday night. We're going to have the arcade's going to be open Thursday night. We're going to have some vendors in there Thursday night. We will start a couple of our Gamer of the Year tournaments, which is still open to everybody, still up for grabs for adults and kids. Then Friday, we'll open in the morning. Have the arcade going. We're going to have a first time we're doing this is Friday. GameStop is helping us with the local GameStop here. We're putting on a Madden tournament Friday.
Oh, good stuff.
Yeah. Get some people in. Get some all you Madden players. Come see us. We're going to have some prizes for that, and then you're running a tournament, which we're looking forward to. And then we have 6 other tournaments for our Gamer of the Year. Then Saturday will be, in the evening, will be the Gamer of the Year. Walter will have some card presentations, and we'll have our Gamer of the Year. And then we'll have the important International Video Game Hall of Fame inductions. And also early Saturday afternoon, they are going to, that's when we're celebrating the reshoot of the Time Life magazine photo shoot in downtown Ottumwa. We will have our visitor center open. We have a visitor center downtown now that's real close to opening here, where people will be able not only to come in and learn about the town, but we'll have some history in there. We'll learn about the video game capital of the world. It'll be a Ottumwa Video Game Capital of the World Visitor Center. So we're looking forward to people seeing that. And then Sunday, we'll have our give back ceremony for Wounded Warrior. We'll have great games going then, and it's just going to be a good, fun, family-friendly, gamer-friendly event. We enjoy, people from my era, people from your era, bringing their families and their kids in and Triforce. I really got to tell you what fascinates me the most. It just thrills me is when I see the 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old kids coming in and playing Pac-Man like it was invented yesterday.
Yeah, that's
and like
that's that next generation. You get
Yeah,
that. There's
and
a level of pride you take when you see that, man. A big level of pride.
it is. You know, my daughter is 8 years old, and I got to be honest with you. She's 8 years old, and you know, I take games pretty serious. You know, my daughters 8. They're 8 and 6, and they do a lot of things. They play softball. They're into tumbling and trampoline. They're into competitive swimming. You know, they're into, you know, every night we got to be somewhere. But when I started them out playing games and playing games responsibly, the first thing we went over was the history. This is how we got here. This is how we got here. And I'm so proud of my daughters because, you know, they just adore Walter and they adore Billy, and they love seeing them. And you know, even as young as my daughters are, they're young and they embrace the history and the future of what we want to do, and carrying on Walter's vision. And I like to explain it that, you know, in the early 80s, Walter planted a seed. You know, now we just got to keep watering that and watering that and watering that and watering that, you know, and keep it growing and keep it growing. But when those kids come in, and then I see at our events, people I went to school with bring their families and their kids and their grandkids in, and you know, we're talking about old days, and you know, like it happened yesterday, and then these kids and their families are experiencing it for the first time. And I just remember, you know, when you see the look of a child playing Donkey Kong, or a child playing Pac-Man, or Billy kneeling to help a child play Pac-Man, or these older gamers of your generation and my generation mingling with these kids, it just gives me goosebumps, because I remember like it was yesterday, the first time I walked into Twin Galaxies, and the feelings I felt, and the emotions, and how exciting it was. We're giving this generation a new time, a new thing. Years from now, you know, they'll be able to take their kids, and this is what Grandpa played when he was young. And it just excites me that kind of clean family fun, you know, can also be competitive, can be shared with families, can be casual, can be anything. And it's just exciting, you know, when you see, I work at a local Walmart here, the security manager, and after it was our first event, this is the one you were at last November,
Yeah.
gave some wonderful speeches. A lady come up to me, a customer, with tears in her eyes, with tears in her eyes. And I, you know, being a good associate, I said, yeah, are you okay? Is anything okay? And she goes, no, I just want to talk to you. Can we talk in private? So she pulled me to the side, and she goes, I want you to know that I brought my 2 kids down there. You know, and I don't want this to be a sad story, but she said their dad left not too long ago, and you know, they haven't quite known what to do with themselves. They're young, and it's hard. And she said, I brought them to your event, and I seen smiles on their faces. You know, I'm tearing up telling you this story. She goes, I seen smiles on their faces. Everybody was so nice. It was such a great family environment. They were introduced to something that I did when I was younger, and it was just such a family, fun, positive environment. They played games in a healthy environment. They enjoyed it. They had smiles on their faces, you know, and I used to see them that happy when we were all together. I got some of that back, and she thanked me. And I got to be honest, I had tears rolling out of my eyes. You know, she thanked me. She goes, you gave that back to me. You gave that back to us. And that's what we want. We want people to have a good time, a competitive time, a casual time. We want people to enjoy it. We want them to bring their families. We want this whole well-rounded environment. We want to positively move into the future, and that's what we do with our events. Every event we have, you know, and you know, it's probably no surprise now that Ottumwa, Iowa will be home to a permanent location, you know, in the near future here. So that's no big surprise to most people, to bring some of that nostalgia back, and we're going to keep the town moving forward. And this event's just going to be a great one. I mean, it's the first time, actually. It'll be a big event along with the International Video Game Hall of Fame inductions, with a big event going forward, and lots of people coming. You know, not only, you know, there's you and Billy, and there's some other people, some heavy hitters in the video game world that want to come. And what I'm excited about is these people that are coming are a lot like you and I. I mean, they're positive. They want to move this forward positive, and they want to do things. So it's going to be just a great bunch of people to hang out with. It's going to be a place to make new friends. It's going to be a place to catch up with old friends. You know, it's just going to be a great time, and I'm just looking forward to it. They Jerry Byram, Terry Burtlow, Jenny Burtlow, Michael Dudley, Marcus Bennett, everybody, Julie Huffman, Barwick, and her son Wyatt. Everybody just worked so hard to put these things together. And Triforce, I want to tell you how good a committee I'm on. And I'm excluding myself. I'm talking about these guys now. This group of individuals that I have the honor to be on a committee with. They don't make a dime. They don't make a dime, and they're workhorses. They do anything. Terry Burtlow, who's a familiar face in the game world to a lot of people. Man, that guy goes day and night, getting games in, moving games in, and the other guys and myself, we go when we're off work, and Jenny, his wife, is right there with him, and they do it for the love of the game. They do it for the love of the community. We're not the bad guys. We're not the one. We're not trying to rewrite history. We want to preserve it, and we want to create the future. We want to be home to the International Video Game Hall of Fame, and we happen to have a lot of history. We happen to come across a lot of history. None of that history was gotten rid of. None of that history was pieced off. We have all that history in a secure location, previous donations in a secure location, and we're going to present that to the public. People who donated, the donations are going to mean so much more because they're going to reach so many more people now. They're going to give so many people so much enjoyment. It's just going to be phenomenal, Triforce, and I know you're a big part in promoting that. You've been an ambassador and helped us since day one, since we didn't even know what we were doing when we started day one.
I just want to make sure. I just want to make sure that the history is preserved. I would like to see this passed down so that my children could be a part of this. So, because my life is gaming. Some people say get a life, and I'm like, this is my life, and they'll laugh about it, which is fine, because people's opinion don't shape my life. I validation from other people, that is a big joke to me. I validate myself. That's me. So it's a big joke for me.
Well, and I really have no because when you say they laugh at you or they laugh at this, honestly, that's the way I live my life. I have no tolerance for especially where I work. Where I work, one thing I hate people say is, "Oh, I'm just a cashier," or "I'm just a stockman," and people laugh. Just take in my world, those two examples, those are the two most, hourly associates for any business, and I'm talking from experience, my experience here at Walmart. Hourly associates are the backbone of the company. I love each and every one of them. I treasure each and every one of them. Nobody is just anything. It's all important, and I value those people. Those people are like my family. So, the people who laugh at other people or think they're above other people or think they got it better, I have no tolerance for that. We're all, even not only gamers or Walmart workers or anything, we're all a human race. We're all a team. We just need to get it right.
We're definitely gonna get it right. So I will see you in November.
I'm looking forward to it.
We're doing a road trip. I'm trying to come down with several of our guys. We want to help support the Hall of Fame. It's not even so much about me being inducted. I come to Ottumwa every time Ottumwa has a historical event, and I like to always travel to Ottumwa each year. And I already foresee what's going to happen with Ottumwa moving forward. Just need the right people, right connections. I know the right people, and I know the right connections to connect you guys with, and you guys are good. Trust me, everything is going according to plan. Despite what other people think. They don't understand. They're playing checkers, and the game is chess. So that's a joke right there. They've lost a long time ago because they're behind by several years. They don't understand these things have been put into motion since the Council of Gaming Legends, which a lot of people are not even aware of. That's how far back this has been planned. So guys who are coming around now, you guys who are trying to stop Walter's legacy, you have no idea what you're talking about or what you're doing. You guys are behind. You're losing. And you're making this game boring for me. I'd like to have a competitor that likes. Come on, man. Make this fun. You guys are making this easy. But thank you for coming on, Bill. I really appreciate it. Like to have you on later on at at a later date. Love to have the rest of the Atomo committee on at a later date.
Hey, it'd be
But
an honor. They'd love it.
I got some new camera equipment stuff, some real stuff. You know, a CD helped me get when I was in New York. So when I come down there, you know, I want to get down there like a day or two early because I want to interview the whole staff prior to the event. Because when the event happens, I want to get those 16 to 19 guys from the Life magazine photo shoot. I've got to get all of them. At least 2 or 3 minute interview with every last one of them. I want to document everything, put this together, and I'm going to shop this to Great Big Story. I'm going to shop this whoever going to take it. I'm going to shop it, and we're going to make sure we're going to this time we're going to make sure it gets really. And well, Walter did a good job, but we're gonna do an even better job to make sure that this is ironclad, this is steel clad, titanium clad.
And that's what Walter taught us to do. Take it up a notch. Take it up a notch.
So we're definitely going to take it up a notch. But thanks for coming on. I'm going to contact Mr. Mitchell now. Got to get him on board, and that's going to be a whole different subject. So I look forward to talking to you later. Bill, thank you for coming on, man.
Thanks, Triforce. You have a good night.
All right. So everybody else, I will see you guys at just give me a couple of minutes. I will definitely be back in about 20 minutes, and our next guest will be none other than the legendary Billy Mitchell, gamer of the century. I know that pisses some of you guys off. Hold that.